talking about Tolkien, Ben.
I don't know why you're so aggressive right out of the gate.
I don't know why you're not more aggressive right out of the gate.
Well, we're just going on a pleasant walk through the forest. What could possibly go wrong? I don't see a need.
My daughter face planted about 20 minutes ago while trying to crawl over the couch to put some eggs in her basket.
Oh, okay.
There's a lesson here, Ben.
What's the lesson?
She picked herself up. You know, she had a short little cry. She got that egg in the basket, though. And then we kissed her owies. She went to bed. The point is, you gotta keep going, Ben. Like, you can have your little cry, but, like, we gotta keep going. And sometimes, like, for example, if you're attacked by a giant spider, you gotta keep going, Ben. This is directly related to The Hobbit. My daughter is like Bilbo, but better. So, we're talking about The Hobbit. Chapter 8, Close Encounters of a Mirkwood Kind. Flies and spiders, which is not true, Ben. Not true, okay? There were no flies anywhere to be seen.
Well, no, the Hobbit and the dwarves were the flies.
Yeah, but they didn't have wings. They couldn't fly. Checkmate, Tolkien. They just had ants and spiders.
It's a metaphor? Because...
Metaphor for stupid.
I'm so confused. I'm not ready for this today. So you start the episode.
We're in Mirkwood, Ben.
You start the episode with some weird backdoor brag about your cute daughter, and then you merge into just yelling at Tolkien for an admittedly clever metaphor about notorious enemies, flies and spiders.
I don't know if they're enemies. They're just the food chain. So we're in Mirkwood, Ben.
We're in Mirkwood.
Mirkwood's a dark place, and a lot of dark things in there. Like black squirrels, Ben, that taste like shit when you shoot them and eat them. Just disgusting.
I think I told you when we started this...
You would not want to put this on a pizza.
What the hell is going on? First off, when we started talking about Tolkien, I told you to keep the cursing to a minimum.
Did we?
I told you that. And then it very quickly went out the window. And second... Yes, canonically, they would taste bad on a pizza. However, I have to ask you, do ordinary squirrels taste good on a pizza?
No, but they still put them on a pizza and call it roadkill pizza. And it's awful, and I don't know why anyone would like it. But there you go, Ben.
Where do they do this?
Small town Kansas, Ben. I had to go to small town Kansas as part of...
You can't sell that.
Yeah, well, too bad.
No, that's definitely illegal, because where I used to live in small town Pennsylvania, we had...
Where you had well water.
Yes, we had well... That's not that weird. Humans have been using wells for a long, long time. Arguably safer, I mean... Until fracking came along, it was arguably safer than a lot of other ways of getting water. But in small town Pennsylvania, you could get off the books a deer, like a venison pizza. But there is a law, I think it's national, but it might have just been a PA state law. You're not allowed to sell game meat. You can't like sell it in a restaurant. I don't think you could sell it in general. People do, obviously, to their friends.
You and your loser laws can't stop us.
Clearly. So
anyway, we're in Mirkwood.
Mirkwood, if you're making a pizza, don't use a Mirkwood squirrel. I guess that's the theme of that tangent.
Yeah, don't eat the black squirrels. Okay, they're gross.
You can't eat anything in Mirkwood. No, the plants. You don't even really want to drink the water.
Well, how do you know the plants aren't edible? They didn't try that. They just tried the squirrel, and they tried to avoid the magic water. But you don't know. Maybe there's an edible tree. We never tried that.
An edible tree?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure somebody out there is going
We're in
to tell me
fantasy land, okay?
I know
Yeah,
Parts of
someone's going to
trees
be
are
like,
edible.
oh, maple trees are actually delicious. You just grind them up and it tastes like maple syrup. I don't
Well,
know,
like,
Ben. I'm
Aspirin's
not a
derived
botanist
from
and I'm
willow
not a
bark or
fantasy
something,
botanist. But what I'm
and-
saying is,
Okay.
Mirkwood, not a good time for anyone. It's
Not a
dark,
good time for anyone.
it's cold, the sand gets everywhere.
The sand gets everywhere. It's a quintessential dark forest.
Yeah, sunlight barely penetrates down to the ground, and you can't eat anything inside of it, and they didn't try to eat the trees, so it just sucks, and the rations are running low. It's pitch black at night. Like, you can't literally see your hand in front of your face, but you can see creepy, weird eyes just looking at you. Weird, creepy, gross eyes, sometimes insect eyes. Just the worst. And so they're traveling through what sounds like even worse than the Misty Mountains. And they finally come across the Black River, Ben.
That they
And
were
they're all
warned
like-
about.
Yeah, they were warned about. Because otherwise, they would have been like, yeah, we need this water. We're running low on water. We're running low on food. I could drink this entire river today, dog. But they don't do that. But there was a bridge here once. There's not a bridge here anymore, Ben. How are we going to get across? Oh, Bilbo. As we've been building up this entire time, his eyes are sharp as shit, Ben. He can see what the dwarves can't. He can see there's a boat on the other end of this here river. And using what I can only assume inspired a lot of D&D stuff, they use rope and like a hook.
It does
And
feel very D&D. One
Yes.
person tries it, can't make it. Another person, they try again. They're like, okay, I'll let you roll one more time. If Bilbo wants to take the help action, I'll let you roll with advantage. With advantage, Feely is able to get the hook connected to the boat, and then they start pulling it, but it turns out the boat's tied at the other end. So they're going to need to make a strength check. And again, now the whole party's like, I want to use the help action too. So all the dwarves are pulling together, and with their combined strength, they are able to rip the rope on the other side and bring the boat over.
And then they
Thorin-
set up a little system where they can
Thorin
go back
comes
and
up with
forth
an
the
elaborate plan for how we're going to get across the river. He assigns parties. He's like, you're going to go. Bombur, obviously, you're very
Bombur,
fat.
you're going. Yeah, you are humongous and fat. And Bombur's like, I don't like going last. He's like, Bombur, please, I'm not even paying attention to you anymore because you're so fat. Anyway,
This boat could
these are
easily
who-
hold
thi-
4 people. This is ridiculous. You know, it's not even about this. Like, I've been on this journey with you guys too. I haven't eaten in 2 weeks, the same as the rest of you. Like, you know, when I set out on this journey, yeah, I'll admit I was a little overweight. I'm still a little overweight, but I'm less so.
oh, that funny fat Bombur. Am
Part
I
of
right,
the reason
guys?
I agreed
Anyway,
to go
we're
on this
moving on.
journey was as
We're
a weight loss
ignoring
thing.
him?
But yeah, and
It's like that math puzzle. You know, you have like a wolf and a sheep and a bushel of whatever, and you know the sheep will eat the vegetable and the wolf will eat the sheep. So you got to get them across the river without them eating each other. Except Bombur is there, and Bombur's just like fat, and so like we gotta like how do we get Bombur across? Well, turns out it's not gonna matter in a moment.
yeah. So Thorin lays out an elaborate system of how we're going to get across. Immediately,
Just like in D&D.
yeah, immediately falls apart. Who Bombur?
There's a great white stag. There's also like there's a black stag and a white whatever the opposite of a stag is. I don't know, animals, Ben.
There is a white doe and a white
There you go.
fawn, and there is a black
Yeah.
hart, which is also a stag. It is a male deer.
Perfect. I got the stag right, and then I got the opposite of a stag also right. I don't know how I'm wrong here. I got that all right.
Okay, so
So they shoot the stag, and it runs away, and then
I actually
Fawn
think it was-
comes out, and
no, never mind.
What?
I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. Please continue.
I think it gets hit, but then it bails before they can get it.
So Thorin
And,
shoots it, and if you know anything about hunting deer, deer don't know they're supposed to fall over dead, so they just run and scream while bleeding if you do
Yes.
not get an instant kill. And that is what
Yes.
happens to this deer. It runs screaming into the forest, bleeding everywhere, and they don't have time to track it down. And I cannot remember if this deer comes up later.
Yeah, what was this?
I don't know.
Because the white doe like jumps across the river in one leap, putting Bilbo to shame, and it also knocks Bombur into the river. I think they call him fat again. I think they say he has a smile on his fat face, like Jesus.
This chapter,
Bro, Bilbo's brutal.
I thought we were joking a little bit in the last chapter with all the Bombur stuff.
It's really mean, this chapter.
It's brutal in this chapter.
Yeah.
Every
he dozed
time.
off with a smile on his fat face. It's like, Jesus.
Yeah. And then, so this river, if you drink the water, which Bombur does as he's, struggling to survive, and by drink, I mean inhales. He's drowning. And they finally get him out, and he's completely knocked unconscious because that's what the river does to you. It causes you to go into a deep sleep. And Bombur is unconscious for like 2 weeks. And nobody's like, is Bombur gonna die? Like,
nobody is alarmed. They just drag his fat ass across the entire forest,
complaining the whole time. Literally, when Bombur goes to get it, when Bombur complains about the boat assignments, he says, "Why do I always have to go last?" And Thorin says, "If you don't like going last, you shouldn't be so fat."
Yeah. It's
and
brutal.
I was like, whoa, you guys are so mean. And again, I'm thinking back because like I remember in the movie, they put Bombur, I think it's a guy, and they put him in like a fat suit, which is maybe the least offensive way you can do Bombur if he's just like unrealistically fat. But I don't think that's what Tolkien was picturing. I think Tolkien was probably picturing somebody like my size.
Yeah, I don't. I think that there was a different
Different
there weren't
standard
a lot of
for
600-pound people back in Tolkien's time. And
now, I will say the other thing you have to keep in mind too is I don't think Tolkien also puts the same kind of. Well, I don't want to defend him too much because some of this is mean, but like.
It's really mean.
I don't think he puts the same kind of like shame on weight that maybe we do because like Bilbo's supposed to be fat too, but Bilbo's also just like 2 feet tall. So
and he's a ridiculous Olympic athlete despite being large. He has like a 6-foot vertical leap, and he runs a mile or 5 miles in like 10 minutes or something.
Bombur also has a moment in this chapter.
So my question has been, so this is all written by Bilbo in universe. Did Bombur piss Bilbo off at some point? Like, did Bombur just like Bilbo's like, when I write this story, I'm gonna make you look like the biggest fucking idiot around. Like Bombur, like you joked in this very episode, Bombur hasn't been eating a lot. He lost a lot of weight, but Bilbo still writes him as like ridiculously fat and stupid, like goofy and comical. Like Bilbo's just being a dick to this guy who really pissed him off on this journey, I guess.
You think Bombur's really the one who like got the ring and beat up Smaug and and Bilbo's just like, and then I did it. I mean, obviously,
The Hobbit version 3, Justice for Bombur.
I think the real explanation. So Bilbo is never the one saying these things to Bombur, but I think the universe explanation is just that I think being fat was a funny thing to be at the time Tolkien wrote this, and we have since entered into something of an obesity crisis, and now it's not funny to be fat, and many of us who are fat would desperately like to not be. And the modern world we live in is just making that very difficult. And so there's a lot of hang-ups on that now. Tolkien was addicted to tobacco. I don't know. Maybe
what
Bombur
a
was
fucking
thinking about
loser,
that. Yeah.
am I right?
But yeah, so they're carrying Bombur along. Their food rations are dwindling. They eventually run out. And there's just really nothing to do. And when it gets...
And they
could
wasted
barely
all their arrows.
Yeah, they could barely see during the day. And at night, you literally can't see your hand in front of your face. But all of a sudden at night, they start seeing these fires pop up.
They also started hearing disquieting laughter. And there was a great hunt to the north, but I don't think that's important.
And so they see these fires and like they see this like feast going on, and it sounds like elf voices.
Oh yeah, you forgot, Ben. Bombur wakes up before this happens, and he's like, I was having this amazing dream about this splendid feast with the king of the forest. And they're all like, shut up.
Thorin's
Shut
like,
up.
yeah, don't talk about food unless you have food. And he's like, and there was all this chicken, Thorin. Chicken's your favorite, right? Had amazing gravy on it. I think there was even barbecue sauce. You don't even know what that is. It hasn't been invented yet. But if you did, it would blow your fucking mind. And yeah, I licked all that dream gravy right off that drumstick. Fuck you, Thorin. I hope you especially starve. I will bury you, Thorin. Yeah, I'm fat. I'm going to outlast you. I'm going to be the last one in this forest. And when it's all said and done,
no
I'm
one
going to
ever
eat
thought
you.
about eating.
I'm going to eat you,
Bombur.
Thorin.
No one ever looked at Bombur like, there's some food over here. I mean, we
That'll
don't
wake
know
him
that
up.
he's not going to die.
All the elf weirdness.
Yeah, there are these rings of light and elves, but every time they approach, all the lights snuff out real quick. They do it once, and then they're like, all right, everyone running in didn't work out so well. Go get him, Bilbo, and they shove Bilbo in, and the light goes out again, and no one can find Bilbo. He's fast asleep. He was also having dreams of all that food. And then it happens a third time. It's the loudest that there is. Thorin is like, you know what? This is a bad idea, but also we're going to starve to death. So let's do it. Oh yeah, I guess I should also mention that Bilbo climbs up a tree, and he doesn't realize how close to the edge they are because they're in a valley, so it looks like the forest just goes on forever. So they're like, yeah, we're going to starve to death in this forest. This sucks. Let's give it one last try. And then lights go out again. And Bilbo's like, I can't find anyone. I hear their screams. I don't know. I'm just going to take a nap, wait for it to become daytime, and then I'm going to find them. That's weird. What's this? Oh my god, there's a giant fucking spider wrapping me up. Luckily, Bilbo's got a knife, and he shivs that spider in the face.
This is
and
a
he calls
bit
his
of a...
blade Sting.
No, I was going to say, this is a pivotal moment for Bilbo.
Sting, who just retired this month from wrestling, Ben.
That was Bilbo's favorite wrestler.
Yeah,
And in honor of him, he named his blade
Sting.
Sting. Yes.
And yes, this is the moment where Bilbo gets both himself and, in a moment, gets the rest of the dwarves out of a bind. All by himself, Ben. No Gandalf. Gandalf isn't there to save the day. This is Bilbo time.
No Gandalf, no dwarves to help him. This is just Bilbo, one man, going to free prisoners of war, not unlike John Rambo. Not unlike that Chuck Norris movie that I can't remember the name of.
John Bilbo.
John Bilbo! God, I need to find a way, whatever the Rambo font was, to just make it Bilbo for this episode. And just have, like, the Hobbit standing there with his shirt ripped open, cut hanging out, Sting in one hand, the head of a spider in the other. And, Yeah, so this is Bilbo's time to shine. He takes to murder like a duck to water.
Like blood to a knife.
These spiders are, again, sentient, thinking creatures, but
I hate them. And
they're in kind of a gray area here.
There was a great spider that was around in the First Age. I know that. And Shelob was like its offspring or something. So these spiders are somewhere in that totem pole, and thus they gotta die.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
don't know
saying,
where that
if
stands
I
on
were in this world, I would be like, you know what? There are giant spiders in this forest. Let's make a makeshift flamethrower. Let's go get them. Let's burn the entire forest down if we have to kill these things, because they're abominations. All right. And as we also know, when they die, they just cease to exist because they don't have souls. Because they're garbage, Ben. They're garbage, and I hate them. Let's go kill all the spiders. How can you say they're sentient? Yeah, they have language, but also fuck them, Ben.
Well, that's kind of what I was wondering. I'm trying to remember what Ungoliant was.
A giant spider monster.
I'm aware she's a giant spider.
Did Ungoliant eat herself to death or something stupid like that? I remember she had a hilarious way of dying.
Ungoliant, I think,
devoured herself.
I think
Silmarillion hints that Ungoliant's unremained hunger drove her to devour herself.
Okay, that has nothing to do with what I'm trying to say, though.
Yeah, but I just needed to know, Ben. Anyway.
Okay, so Ungoliant was a Maya, I believe.
What?
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell you, but you kept talking over me.
Yeah, that's what I do, Ben. Let's see.
I believe Ungoliant is a spirit that took the form of a giant spider. In which case, because...
kill it with fire.
She was probably of a darker nature. Or, I don't know, she's not like a follower of Melkor, so I don't know... She's not like the Balrogs.
She teamed up with Melkor.
She did, but it's also kind of hinted that she could have kicked Melkor's ass. Like, Melkor barely survives Ungoliant.
Yeah, he got his ass kicked, and then the Balrogs had to bail him out.
Yeah, so I'm thinking we're wandering into the lore bits, but, like, I kind of wonder if these spiders do have souls. If they're the children of Ungoliant. No, because hear me out. There's another Maya that takes the form of an elf woman, and she has children, and they are elves.
Tolkien's original writings say that Ungoliant was a primeval spirit of night named Moru. I don't know what that means, Ben. Do you know what that means?
You're going beyond the Silmarillion there. You're going into, like, the drafts that are, like, in pencil that... like literally in his notebooks. So I've been reluctant to get into any of that in The Hobbit. So I've been trying to avoid. We touch on the Silmarillion, but I wasn't going to go into any of that for now.
Ungoliant is apparently mentioned in The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey by Radagast. I didn't remember that, but I also don't remember most of that film because it was garbage. But yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, where I'm going with this. It's
Maybe
possible.
They have souls?
They have souls. It's possible what Bilbo is killing, like, this is not just
Will they just go to hell, then?
I don't know if there is a hell.
Well, we'll find out after he starts killing more of these spiders.
I guess they'll find out when Bilbo sends them wherever they're going.
Yeah. This is real important, but also a moot point because it's not going to stop him from the killing.
Just know
Bilbo's got that. He's got that taste for spider blood, and
it's just because they're spiders doesn't mean this isn't like killing a person. I think these are spiders, but they're also people.
Well, I'll believe that they're people when Texas executes one of them.
I'll believe they're people when Texas forces somebody to give birth to one of them.
Oh, God. Oh, Jesus. All right. So, yeah. Bilbo, armed only with a magical spider-killing blade and a ring that makes him invisible, valiantly charges off to save his comrades.
So, yeah, but he's got one other skill.
He can move silently.
Nope, he's got one other skill.
He's got keen eyes.
Kind of. You're getting warmer.
He can strategize. Oh, he can throw rocks really well.
To the point where, like, again, it's mentioned, it's like, this is another
Squirrels
thing that sort
and
of
birds
like changed
ran
with
away
time.
from him.
Yeah, Bilbo, as a child, practiced his rock throwing on squirrels and rabbits and birds, presumably killing them.
Yeah.
And
Bilbo was on his way to becoming a serial killer if Gandalf hadn't come along.
do you think that's what Gandalf saw in him? When Gandalf keeps telling everybody that, like, Bilbo, look, you're gonna be glad this guy's here. You're gonna be glad he's here, and you're gonna be glad he's on your side. He's a fucking freak.
He has a bonus to improvised weapons so powerful you won't even believe it till you see it.
Bilbo kills like 4 spiders with the rocks.
Yeah.
Knocks them out of the tree. They fall 50 feet to their death.
He is a fucking monster. But since he
is a
spiders,
literal monster.
I give him a pass.
These spiders talk. They have hopes and dreams. They have souls.
Well, most of their hopes are, I'm going to eat this dwarf. You want to drain the juices out of this dwarf?
I assume anybody who's very serious about Tolkien stopped listening to this series shortly after the first episode. But if there's anybody left, I'm actually legit not joking. I think the spiders have souls. I think they're the children of
the
Maiar.
eagle doesn't, but apparently the spiders do.
No, the eagle is an eagle. But if the spider is the child of Ungoliant, then
Does
I
Tom
think
Bombadil
they
have a soul?
souls. I think Tom Bombadil, he's his own thing. He's beyond all that. He was crashing on the couch.
He spells it differently.
He was crashing on the couch. Yeah, he's got the bottoms of his shoes. What are you talking about? He was crashing on the couch when the gods got here. He's Eru's old roommate from college.
So, Bilbo, he finds all of his friends tied up, all 12 of them. There were definitely 12, right? Okay. So he finds all of them. He points out, like, that baddest one's probably Bombur. Like, he had to get one more in on him. And then, after he throws some stones at the spiders, his plan is to, like, I'm gonna lure the spiders to me, and then circle back around, get my friends free.
So I'm gonna draw aggro. I'm gonna kite the spiders out of the forest.
I'm gonna aggressively sing at them and call them an Addercop and a Tomnoddy. Ben, what are these things? What are these words?
I didn't look them up. I don't want to know.
Is this a fantasy word, or is this like a weird British word, which might as well just be a fantasy?
We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this live on air. I'm praying.
I'll look up Tomnoddy.
I'm doing Addercop. It's okay. An Addercop correspond. Oh, this is actually interesting wordplay. An Addercop is adder, referring to poison or venom, and cop, which is apparently spider.
Oh.
So
mine is not wordplay, Ben. It just means a fool or a dunce, and it's mostly a Scottish word, it looks like.
Addercop can refer to a spider in northern England, or it can refer to a peevish and ill-natured person.
There is... What the fuck is this? Old Tom Noddy. The card of a giant fucking spider. Is this real?
Tom Noddy. Is that what he called him?
Yeah. It's a fool or a dunce. But it's also a playing card, Ben.
Yeah, it's just a fool, dunce, idiot. UK only. Never used over here.
Yeah.
That's Bilbo. I'm glad. You know what? I'm really glad. I didn't look it up because I was like, oh boy, down this road before with Agatha Christie. I don't want to look up old words I don't know. I don't know which ethnic people this is going to be making fun of. But in this case, Tolkien was above board. These are pretty harmless words. Again, I hope.
Yeah.
Either way, it really pissed the spiders off.
Yeah,
They
it
did
did.
not
They were
like.
furious. And they were hunting for where he was.
I thought, like, I knew this wasn't it, but I like to imagine that when he was calling them adder cops, like, that was like Bilbo calling them narcs.
Oh.
Yeah. You're acting like a real cop right now.
Yeah, that Bilbo then wrote that that's not what happened. Bilbo was like, yeah, he was on the ground and we had to save him, and he was just out of it. Kept complaining about his legs hurting because he wasn't using his legs because we kept dragging him. That big old Bombur, am I right, guys?
Meanwhile, Bombur's just punching every spider, picturing Thorin's face on them. He's just grabbing a rock and just beating every spider's brains out. It's just like, who's fat now, huh? Huh? Who's eating too much now? Thorin, spider.
And
Thorin,
so
Dorkinshield.
Bilbo meant nice. Bilbo circles around. They start fighting the spiders. A fighting retreat, just like in Nom. And eventually,
retreat.
that was a retreat with honor.
A retreat with honor.
They retreat with honor, and eventually the spiders are like, we're tired of getting stabbed. This isn't worth it. We're out. Peace. And then they're like, all right, cool. And Bilbo tells them all about how, like, yeah, I got this magic ring. Like, Gollum just gave it to me. Like, I beat him in the riddle game. He just gave it to me. That's what really happened. And then they go to sleep, and then suddenly they're like, oh, shit, where's Thorin? They're like, oh, yeah, there were only 12 dwarves. Yeah. No, then we cut to Thorin. This is the stinger at the end of the episode that gets you hyped for next week's release on, I guess not network TVs. It'd be like HBO Max. So, Thorin, he's being interrogated by the King of the Wood Elves. That's right, Ben. They have better sneak and dex, but less magicka than the High Elves. And also, in the world of Elder Scrolls, they are nature-worshipping cannibals. Just think about that. Anyway, they don't like dwarves because there was an ancient war between elves and dwarves, Ben. Did you know that? I don't think you knew that. Elves were really upset because the dwarves took some stuff from them, but the dwarves say that the elves stiffed them. And that's just not cool.
So, this was the one part I was confused about at the beginning of our Hobbit journey, when I mentioned the necklace Nauglamir. We'll get into that more later. I think this specifically refers to some personal incident between Thranduil, the king of the Wood Elves, and some other dwarves. It wasn't Thorin's people. The incident I was thinking of was with a different guy.
So there were more than one incident where a dwarf was stiffed by elves.
So in the other incident, the dwarves weren't stiffed. In the other incident, the dwarves were just like, nah, deal's off, we're keeping it. It's more complicated than that, but there's a series of bad business deals between elves and dwarves. And I think maybe there's blame on both sides. Thranduil seems like annoying. I know in the Peter Jackson movie, they turned this incident into a whole, like, side thing.
Yeah, and you had to hook a dwarf and an elf lady up in order to bring the peoples together, Ben.
Yeah.
All we needed was a random romance to really make The Hobbit pop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't working for me until they added the romance subplot. And Legolas running up collapsing stairs. That's what sold it, Ben.
I don't know. All I can say is that the dwarves, as near as I can tell, I don't know. I guess you could say like there's great variety between individuals, but like as a people, if anybody was wondering, Tolkien has talked about like dwarf relationships. Would you like to know more? I could get into this if you want.
They built dwarves out of clay, I assume,
No,
because there are no
they do
female
not.
dwarves. They don't
No,
exist.
of course there's female dwarves. What do you think? They just sprout out of the ground? No, that's ridiculous.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll tell you how this works. Okay. So
like in Power Rangers, where they put the putties in the oven, that's how they make dwarves. Power Rangers is part of the Lord of the Rings universe. That's canon now.
I like the Power Rangers. I like Super Sentai. But the dwarves, of course, have both male and female. They reproduce like anything else, like any other mammal. Dwarf women to non-dwarves look identical to dwarf men. They're very difficult to tell apart. They do have beards. And often they don't really go adventuring in the world too much. Only about 1/3 of the dwarf population is female. And Tolkien describes dwarves as multiplying slowly, partially because of that, but also partially because dwarves mate for life. And some just choose not to. Like most dwarf men and a decent
for
chunk
example, half of the dwarf men who aren't going to be getting any anyway.
Well, they're not bothered by that because dwarves are not like highly sexual beings. They're often totally engrossed in their projects.
Yeah,
And
their
dwarf women
should be repopulating the dwarven species.
Dwarf women are the same. Some dwarf women just don't take husbands because they're doing their own thing. And Tolkien never addressed this, but there's got to be some percentage of the population that is same-sex attraction. So, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be, like, there's always an exception. There's always, like, one guy who's going to do something off script. But, like, could a dwarf fall in love with an elf? Yeah. Be a weird dwarf. He would be an atypical dwarf.
Feely or Keely? It was Keely, I think.
Whichever one didn't have a beard because the actor was cute, which also would have been a weird dwarf. Maybe he's just a weird dwarf. And weird in this context. It's no judgment.
He had a beard. It was just not a very long or very good beard. Like
it was a shameful,
dwarf,
like piece of stubble. Yeah,
wispy. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that British actor. He was in a show. Oh god, he played a vampire who had a werewolf roommate and a ghost roommate.
This sounds either really, really shitty and low rent or like a hidden gem.
It was okay.
There's no middle ground, Ben. It's only one.
I'm trying to remember what it was called. They made an American version of it, and the American version of it was just terrible. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that. If anybody knows, leave a comment wherever you find this, I guess. But yeah, so the Elf King interrogates Thorin, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing in my woods?" Thorin's like, "Just trying to survive, trying to get through."
Yeah, we came upon your people to beg for food. Oh yeah, where are your other companions? They're probably out looking for food and starving to death. Why did you come into the woods? Because we were hungry. Like,
yeah, he says, like, what were you doing in the woods? And he says, looking for food. And he's like, why were you in the woods? To get to the other side. What are you trying to get to the other side for? He's like, none of your damn business.
Yeah.
And it's like, dungeon for all time. Throw him in the dungeons for 100 years until he wants to talk. And what will you like for dinner? We're also very nice about that sort of thing. And then Thorin orders, 2 starters and a main course, and he eats it, but like with spite. And he wonders how everyone's doing, and he's just praying Bombur hasn't eaten them yet.
Yeah. as he knows that Bombur is prone to do.
It's happened once before. No. So, yeah, I don't actually have a lot of inspirations for this one. This one strikes me as more of a fairy tale inspired thing than any kind of Norse inspiration. I know Tolkien was a fan of the Brothers Grimm stories, and the whole haunted forest thing seems to be very on par with that. We do get some lore drops, some mentions of different kinds of elves, that the wood elves are distinct from the high elves, which are distinct from the sea elves. That is getting into some deep Silmarillion stuff. I think this is another one where Tolkien had probably had that all figured out at this point and was starting to realize that maybe The Hobbit was actually taking place in that world he'd been imagining this whole time. He also... Did you catch the name, not the name drop, but the little mention of Valinor? They differed from the high elves of the West and were more dangerous and less wise. For most of them, together with their scattered relations in the hills and mountains, were descended from the ancient tribes that never went to ferry in the West. There, the light elves and the deep elves and the sea elves went and lived for ages, and grew fairer and wiser and more learned, and invented their magic and their cunning craft in the making of beautiful and marvelous things, before some came back into the wide world. I believe those that came back into the wide world were the Noldor, and I believe they came back to get their Silmarillions back. Their Silmarils back. I don't know why I keep doing that.
Because that's what it's called, Ben.
Yeah, I believe the Noldor were the ones that came back, and it was to get their Silmarils. And these are a group of elves that never went to the West to be with the gods. At this point, I think he really did know. He really is hinting at the events of the Silmarillion, because he also says that they stayed in the land, and after the coming of men, they took ever more and more to the gloaming and the dusk. So this hints also that the elves came first, humans awoke later.
Yeah, and they thought they were so special about it. But guess what? Age of Man, baby!
All of that is detailed in the Silmarillion. All of the waves, like the awakening of the elves, their interactions with the Valar, some of them going to stay with the Valar in the West, some of them staying in Middle-earth, some of them going to the West, doing a little bit of kinslaying, and then coming back. I think we will get into that at some point. I think that might make a little more sense to get into a little more deeply in Lord of the Rings, if we ever get there. So,
one chapter at a time.
Yeah. I was going to say, this was a long chapter, and I don't want to make this, if we get into the elf stuff, it becomes a 2-hour podcast on one chapter of The Hobbit. So I don't want to do that. But the important thing is, this is when Bilbo officially, and through murder, makes a baptism of blood, if you will. But it's black spider blood, so don't worry about it, even though they are ensouled beings, and they do have hopes and dreams. Bilbo has now gone from being that prissy little weirdo landlord to a hardened...
to a man who
adventurer.
Kills spiders. Goddamn right.
I would say
John,
at this point...
we need you back in there.
John, we need you back in.
Gotta get those POWs out, John.
12 of our boys were lost to the spiders last night after we went chasing elf feasts. I know it sounds kind of funny on paper, but you don't want to know what they're doing to him. And Bombur, he got the worst of it. But yeah, I think we'll end there. I think when we come back, we'll come back to my oh boy, maybe second least favorite scene of the Hobbit movies.
Yeah, the really bad river ride.
Yeah. I would have rather they just stopped the movie dead and cut to that part of Mario RPG where you're flying down
I
the
was
river.
just thinking about Mario RPG,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. There's only so many like barrel things in this world. And that was better. Better animated too. On the SNES. I'm not even talking about the remake.
Which was amazing. Everyone should play that. Sponsor us, Nintendo.
Peter Jackson, you should be ashamed of yourself. That's it for this episode of Talking About Tolkien. And if you would like to get these episodes just as soon as they're edited, consider going to our Patreon at patreon.com/WABpod.